This is Joaquin Lippincott, again with another ISD AWS interview. And today I am joined by Art Raymond, founder and chief customer officer at Levels Beyond. Welcome, Art.
Hey, welcome. It's good to be here, looking forward to it.
Well, it's good to have you. For those that are not familiar with Levels Beyond, do you want to just give a general intro about the company and what you guys do?
Yeah. We're a company that's been around a while, and it was a team. We came out of Hearst in New York, and it was a team of people that looked at the world, and we saw that there was going to be a need for what we call, a media orchestration production processing platform, right? It's much more automation, much more manufacturing. So, and we were very early in the stage of doing that. So Levels Beyond started with those sort of roots, and then we moved out to Denver, Colorado, brought a lot of the team along, and then saw that the industry really was going to need it around 2012, 13. And so we started to productize and develop the platform as a marketable tool, and brought it to market, and have enjoyed some great growth, and believe we're one of the early, if not only, kind of iPaaS platforms in the media space.
And how did you guys get involved in the AWS cloud space? I know that's part of what you guys do, but when was that sort of change or adoption for you guys?
Yeah, pretty early. I think when, almost 5 years ago, and I think when AWS was doing some of the early media to cloud infrastructure demos and showing, the media to cloud tools, taking your current production inventory and your current production operations that are on premise and migrating the sensible parts of those to the cloud. We were actually I think we were in the very first like NAB IBC booth with them, being part of the demo environment for that kind of stuff. And then that whole team is fantastic. They've been great partners for us for every step along the way. And all we are doing is migrating our services, deeper and deeper and deeper into that basic infrastructure and platform. So,
right. And I'm curious, total sidebar, but why there's something about Colorado. I think there's something in the air over there, but there's a number of folks that are in the media and entertainment space that have ended up there. Is it, why?
Yeah, for maybe it's the same reason for us, but I was in New York, and the team, we were all in New York. Half of our business was Hollywood and LA or Silicon Valley. So we were doing coast to coast, coast to coast. And so part of what landed us here was travel. We just literally, as a group, said, where should we live? Where it's 2 hours one way, 2 hours the other way, and it's a great place to live. And then if Denver, Boulder, hard to beat it.
Yeah.
So that's how we ended up here. And I think that happens a lot. Now it's a California exodus. I mean, we're seeing tons of that. So
yeah, we've heard. I've been hearing about folks leaving to Texas, all over. I'm still in LA. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see how much longer. We've kind of become decoupled from the physical space, but it's interesting how that's working.
Yeah.
As far as media and entertainment, talk to us a little bit about how your company fits into the overarching M&E ecosystem.
Yeah. It's pretty easy. The media world, whether let's say you're producing a film or an episodic show, and you go through a process of like, hey, I'm putting together this infrastructure, and I'm going to get people out shooting, part of the movie. I'm also going to distribute some of the work to be VFX. I'm going to produce models, and I'm going to create that programming element that's going to be special effects. It's going to be in this background, right? And all this great stuff. And all that stuff starts to move, and it all starts to kind of get done. And it goes through, we call it a media stream or a work stream. But basically, any one thing goes through stages of like, I got to get this work done, and I got to get this work out. And in this industry, those stages include like that dailies piece of getting that film in, and the director, producer choosing the parts and pieces they want. That could be, days of work, and that could be 4 different platforms, right? That are chosen. And then the next piece is a platform, and the next stage, and then that one edit piece is touching 3 different platforms. So what Reach Engine does, and it's really quite fun. We are the glue. in between every single one of those platforms. We have what's called connector services. And we're very different than APIs, so don't mix us up with our Swedish competitor or otherwise, because we think it's more abstracted and more powerful. But we basically, we have connector services, and we have UIs. That's another differentiator. And we basically, have this glue that says, hey, I got this stuff that just came in that we expected for dailies, and I auto transcoded it, and I send it over to Avid people those are the editors that are starting to work on the primary production. And I archived it automatically. And so what we do is we bring in a combination of cohesion, and we sort of normalize the process, and we automate. Through those connector services in our workflow engine, we automate every single thing we can. So we're sort of the manufacturing layer that the industry's needed. It sounds goofy, right? But we really are. We're actually that manufacturing operations layer that needs to be in place.
That tees up my next question perfectly, because you mentioned the complexity. Are there any cloud technologies other than yours that you've read about or Reach Engine has interacted with, or that you've heard about that you find especially interesting?
A lot. Yeah, a lot. There's, well, the AWS stack has been great, right? And I think where AWS has gone, that's different than like Azure and then GCP right now, is the depth of the tools. Like they've got the elemental stack is incredible, right? And it's all enabled in the cloud. And for me to go duplicate that somewhere else, I've got to bring in third-party vendors, and I've got to enable sometimes things up in the cloud that aren't ready for it yet, and things like that. So, they've been great. And then you actually see really unique technologies. There's a player, Zuora, that there's a lot of people that black box AI. So you send them an AI request. I want to get models trained to tell me all this stuff, and I want to get all this data back. And there's companies that have done a great job, but they black box it, so you don't get to control your models, you don't get to control the data and everything else. And these guys came out and they put a framework in place that works with our fabric and it works with our connectors. And it's amazing, right? Because then there's nothing we can't do in that market space. We're working with some next gen player technology that I won't give the name yet, but imagine this: micro communities all around an event like a news broadcast, or a reporter specifically giving an in-depth story from the New York Times at a level that no one's ever done, and you can literally segment people into micro communities and interact. All this great stuff can go on. So there's so much new
chat communities, like being able to interact.
Yeah,
that's what. Fascinating.
Or a concert's coming up on a weekend, like the Jazz Festival in San Francisco, right? And you and I are big into jazz, and so we would say, hey, we're not going to be there, or we are going to be there, but this particular artist is actually going to do an early show at 7 o'clock before this 9 o'clock showing, and we're literally going to get a chance to interact and do some new things in different ways. And my own micro community that you're going to be in is different than this other one that's got 10 people in this other one. And a lot of new tech coming together, and Amazon's launching some new live technology. That's incredible. And then there's a company that did a lot of work for Netflix in the day that's doing amazing cloud enabled live technology called IIO. And they're doing some experimental projects in Thailand and things like that are just incredible. So the world's gonna change. It's already 50% fruit basket upset. So
yeah, no, that's the next question is, what do you think the impact of coronavirus will be on the M&E industry over the next, I'm saying 12 months, but pick whatever horizon you want. Where do you think we have left to go?
Well, yeah, and that's been part of what you've had in a few of these interviews, which is fun to listen to. Certainly production's changed forever, right? We all discovered that you can do a lot with virtualization, a lot more than we ever thought. You can do a lot with remote collaboration and pulling parts and pieces together. So I think there's going to be major changes along those lines. What's going to happen to theaters? I don't know. It's interesting, right? This whole thing, it's funny because I was with some guys at MGM yesterday, and then they're going, I don't know. I just don't think it's coming back. And, it's MGM, right? And they're delaying Bond and all this stuff is going on. And they said, and then I think it was AMC Theaters was so angry about DreamWorks with Trolls, right? And that they released
Yeah.
it. And they're never going to let DreamWorks have a film in there for theaters again. Well, of course that won't happen. But
Yeah.
the whole point being, who knows where that's going to go. But I will say this: like so many people, we now have a 65-inch TV with the most amazing, sound bar and surround
I'm looking
sound.
at one right now. That's so funny.
Yeah, Dolby, and it's a Dolby Vision enabled system that is incredible. And we put that stock center into the middle of the Fame room, and I got to tell you, it's just as good as being in the theater. So I don't know.
I've heard people say, they really miss it. I do miss the theater experience. But it's funny, when you first said theater, I was thinking even, like musical theater, because that's a whole other medium that's been totally upended, live theater. And who knows where that's going to go? I mean, you have a whole workforce that's essentially just, kind of on ice at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. We do the back end, digital back end for a couple of major festivals, one of which is coming up around the corner. So look at that. I mean, Sundance this year, and hats off to them for major innovations. So like there is not a Sundance like physical, right? And
Yeah.
now that one I will miss so much. I'm going back. The moment it's back open, we'll be there because it's just such a special experience. But here they are. I think they have 300 locations, fairly COVID separation enabled in terms of like tickets and how you go in. And it's something that we were pushing them to try to launch for years and they refused. And now all of a sudden they're going to do it. So you're going to have a premiere, director, producer, actors, interviews like you always have, and 300 remote locations that are actually going to be interactive the whole time. So will Sundance always have that as an add-on to the experience, which I think is fantastic because the quality of content's amazing, and Park City is too much for most people, right? I mean, how do you get there? It's expensive. It's ridiculous. You have to have an inside line to get a stupid place. It's just nuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, South by Southwest, what's going to happen? How's it going to change?
Yeah.
And we've got music clients that we do a lot with a couple of people that are major musicians with a lot of indie artists.
Mm-hmm.
Whole new innovations of what's going to go for that, and that little micro thing for adjunct communities, micro concerts, extending live concerts. So I'm like, Beyonce is going to go to LA, and SoFi Stadium is going to be this next generation music venue because it's so utterly amazing in terms of screen and sound presence. And then 100,000 extra tickets are sold for just the timing of the event to people in micro theaters around the community.
Mm-hmm.
When did that ever happen? COVID drove that. So
yeah, I think the theatrical release in the home, I mean, that was a big milestone. But I don't think you're going to get the genie back in the bottle. So for the last question, we've been talking about the media and entertainment industry, but let's go bigger. What do you think the impact is going to be on business or life in general when we think about the cloud over the next, say, 3 years?
Just cloud technology in general?
Yeah, just cloud technology.
Well, I mean, so it certainly changes everything, in terms of how we consume media, but I think it's going to continue to change. It's funny. I'm a mixed person on social media because I think of the psychological impact of like the individualism side of it, right? I still think we're better as community than we are as individuals, and so that probably classifies me, but I just think we are, and that part's kind of negative. But I also think companies and organizations are figuring out new ways, right, to actually create that community piece, right, and to relate differently. And I think the reaction that's going to occur against social media is going to go towards the development of community and more verification and more quality content. And I actually think that's going to come back. And we're actually involved in a couple of projects that relate to that, like AI enablement to analyze content and to actually give a rating to a content piece that tells you how fake it is in terms of factual information. Who knows? Who knows? But those changes are going to be big for the next probably 10 years at least, right? Maybe more.
Yeah.
But but these, it is the best of times, right? Here we are, we're not at the sunset where I'm sort of like, I look at it as like I'm at the pinnacle on a career, and it's never been more fun.
Yeah.
It's absolutely never been more fun. There's just so much change. And there's not a day where I'm like, oh man, that is a tech turn that we should take a look at. And so fun.
Well, great attitude, Art. I know that Levels Beyond is really lucky to have you, and it's been a pleasure.
Likewise.